is Sarah Strecker, and the title of my speech is Better Than Grandma's. Did you know that there is an estimated 7 billion cookies eaten each year just in the United States? That is enough cookies for one cookie per person in the entire world. So that's a lot of cookies. Today I will be demonstrating how to make my favorite chocolate chip cookie recipe. I will be telling you the ingredients, demonstrating how to put them together, and giving you a short background on chocolate chip cookies. In this recipe, you will need half a cup of granulated sugar, 3/4 of a cup of brown sugar. Now, this has to be packed in. It can't just be like sprinkle like you can with the other sugar. It's got to be packed, and you know that it's packed when you dump it out of your measuring utensil. It conforms to the shape of it. You need 1 1/4 cup of flour with 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda. You need 1 teaspoon of salt, 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract, 1/2 cup of unsalted melted butter, 4 ounces of dark chocolate, and 4 ounces of semi-sweet chocolate. You also need 1 egg and espresso powder. Now, you don't have to use espresso powder, and with the dark chocolate and the semi-sweet chocolate, you can do those in chocolate chip form, but I don't really suggest that. I think these are much better. It takes a little bit more time, but that time is worth it. So starting off, you're going to mix your sugars, your salt, which I don't really measure the salt, I just put some in and go with it. So normally about 6 is what I do. And then your butter, which I'm gonna have to put in the microwave for about 10 more seconds. It's just been sitting out here for a little bit. Normally about 45 seconds will melt your butter completely. And then at this point, I also want to add in the espresso powder. So with this also, again, I just pour some in and hope for the best. It hasn't failed me yet. That's a bit much though. Oh well. And just in 10 seconds, my butter has remelted completely. So we're just gonna add this in. Put it off in the sink to be washed soon. And then whisk it until it forms a paste with no lumps. I apologize, my dog is drinking his water. Now, my thing with whisks is a lot of the times it just gets stuck in the whisk. So if that happens, normally I'll just go grab a fork and I'll stick it in between the little things and it'll get it all out. So this right here is about as good as it's gonna get right now. So next we're gonna put in the egg and the vanilla. Make sure you wash your hands after touching the egg. You know, eggs are gross. We don't want to touch them. And then it's the same thing that I do with the salt and the espresso powder. I just kind of pour this in and hope for the best. I know it's probably much more than a teaspoon, but I like it. And then you're again just gonna whisk this until light ribbons fall off the whisk. So I'll show you what I mean by that when I get to it. So it doesn't really take all that long for this to happen, and it'll be this like really, really light color. And then when you pick up your whisk, okay, maybe it's not done quite yet, but this is what it means by like ribbons falling off. It'll want to stay on there for a while, for just a little bit on the whisk, and that's pretty good. But as long as it's not just like a lump of dough yet, then you're fine, really. So now you're gonna add in your flour and baking soda. Now the recipe says to sift it. I've never done that just because we don't have anything small enough to sift it with. So I just kind of shake a little bit in at a time and then whisk it all up. And with the whisking, I'm not doing it very hard. I'm just trying to get it so it's not just a bunch of flour sitting on the top of it. So now you're gonna get out a spatula, or a scraper, I guess. I don't know, I call them both. You're gonna try to get all the dough that you can out of this. And then you're gonna fold your batter. You don't want an over-mixed cookie, so that's why we fold it instead of stirring it all in. So you just go around the bowl and then push down is what I do. So at the end of this, your dough will kind of look like this. It's basically cookie dough. There is still a little bit of flour in there, but we will be folding it more once we add in our chocolate. So first, since this is already cut, this is our semi-sweet chocolate. Since this is already cut, we're just gonna pour it in there. It's around about 4 ounces. It's not really, I, again, don't measure that because what really is too much chocolate, you know? In a chocolate chip cookie, that's supposed to shine, so. And then with this bar, all I'm doing really is taking it and breaking it off, mostly because it saves dishes that we have to do later. And I did it last night. You'll see why I made another thing of cookies last night. But it worked out pretty well, and those cookies are really good. So we're gonna continue doing it. Okay, and around about the time you think it's done, go ahead and open it up, and you'll see the bigger pieces, so then you'll be able to individually break it off like this. This is a pretty big piece, so we would want to break it off just a little bit. It's a little bit harder than what you would do with the knife and just cutting it all up, but it's a lot easier to just easier. I just called it harder. It's a lot. What's the word? It's a lot more time saving in the long run, because then you don't have to wash a bunch of dishes. So most of these are pretty good. You just don't want like huge chunks of chocolate in there, because then you won't be able to get it into the dough, and your chocolate chip cookie dough will be too big. So the rest of this we can just pour in. And then, just like we did with the flour, we're going to want to fold this into the dough. So then once your chocolate chips are fully incorporated into the batter, it'll look like this, a much nicer chocolate chip cookie dough. And then you'll want to cover it and let it sit in your refrigerator for at least 4 hours, but I recommend an entire day of just sitting in there. This lets some of the flavors that we put in there incorporate more into the batter to make it a better tasting cookie. So you'll take saran wrap or a lid that you have for whatever bowl that you use, and you'll just put it down and then throw it in the freezer for a day. After a day has passed, see, second bowl of cookie dough. After a day has passed, you can finally make your cookies, and you'll want to preheat your oven to 350 degrees. And then I use this cookie scoop. It's a smaller ice cream scoop specifically for cookie dough, so I can make uniform little balls with it to make all my cookies the same size. So you'll want to put these on a parchment paper covered baking sheet, and then throw it in the oven for at least like 8 minutes. Sometimes it takes like 10 minutes. And then you'll want to take them out and then set them on a cooling rack. And when they come out of the oven, they should look like this. The edges are a little bit dark, but it's still a firm cookie. And that's a good looking cookie right there. And then after that, you pretty much just enjoy. So chocolate chip cookies were first invented by Ruth Wakefield in the 1930s. This cookie is what we know now as the Toll House cookie recipe, and it was so good that it was featured on Betty Crocker's radio show. Now, this isn't my recipe, but it's a recipe that I found on YouTube and on the popular cooking channel Tasty. I was trying out different cookie recipes because none of them really tasted right, but this one is probably my best go around. Now, what you should take away from this is that it's a really good cookie recipe that you can try on your own, and the ingredients are all pretty cheap. The most expensive is probably the chocolate, which that's probably going to be your most expensive thing in almost any recipe. And they're really easy to get. All these ingredients you can find at like Aldi's or Walmart, any store that you go to. And that's how you make some cookies that are definitely better than Grandma's.